Hi, welcome to Foundersuite's onboarding webinar. I'm Nathan Beckord. I'm the founder and CEO. Foundersuite has been used by over 100,000 startups to raise over $21 billion in angel and venture capital. So today I'm going to show you some tips and tactics for how to use Foundersuite to raise capital for your startup. Let's jump in. All right, thanks guys for joining today. Let me power through an overview of how to use Foundersuite, some tips for using it, some general fundraising tips and best practices, and then we'll do your questions. I'm Nathan. I'm the founder of Foundersuite. Started this almost a decade ago, which I can't believe. We were kind of the first ones to build out this platform for raising capital, and we've had about 100,000 startups use us since then, which is always fun and exciting. A couple unicorns have grown up on the platform. So, what do we have here? I think you're probably all familiar, but several tools for raising capital, CRM for managing a pipeline, investor database for sourcing investors, pitch deck hosting, investor updates, email tools for doing your outbound marketing, and a data room for running due diligence. So that's what we've built thus far. When you first sign in here, or when I create a new pipeline, let me do that real quick. When I first come in here, it's going to tee up this modal where you enter whatever industry you're working on. We have some of the most popular ones here to start with, but if none of these fit, go to the other and you can pick from the list of stuff here. I was just working with a startup doing femtech, and she was raising the seed round, pre-seed, looking at both VCs and angels. You can come down here and add a few more details. This will help enrich the results. Not everything you add here will affect the results that we display for you, but I do recommend coming in here and then uploading your deck. That will automatically load it into the pitch deck section. So these are the minimum things you need to enter to start a pipeline or a new account. Do that. It works for a moment or two, and then it suggests a bunch of investors. And with one click, I can add all of them. Or if I want to spend a few more minutes digging through each one, you can do that as well, and then add them to the CRM. When you do this, when you complete this modal process, it will both add them to your CRM, and on a weekly basis, as long as there's some activity in your account, it will go and find some new investors for you. So that's one way to get started. Should be pretty intuitive. Let me know if you have any questions. What I would do next generally is kind of set up the CRM to match your workflow. So if I go all the way to the right, you can add new columns. You can relabel or edit those columns. And you see I've added quite a few different columns because I really like to get granular around my fundraising workflow, right? Kind of my research, my qualified and mapped. Skip ahead a bit. Sent intro email or contacted, sent pitch deck, viewed deck, responded, set up pitch meeting. So I've got it really step by step. And the reason I do that is now I can really see where I'm at with every single investor with great detail. But also, if I'm going to be using the email tools, I can create rules. If I'm going to send out an email sequence, I can create little rules like if investor opens and replies, move them to the responded column. If they don't open or reply, keep sending emails. So there's another reason for doing that. That should be pretty straightforward, setting up your CRM. Now the next step is usually getting your team all connected. So you can invite folks into your account under settings, under team, and this should be pretty straightforward. You simply click this, you would enter their name, their email. They'll get an email invite with a link in there. They click that, they follow the prompts, they'll be a member of your team. You can invite multiple people into your account. There's no additional charge for that. Who should you invite? If you have a co-founder that's going to be working with you on the fundraise, or maybe you have an assistant or admin or intern, invite those folks in. If you have advisors or mentors that might be helping with the raise, I suggest inviting them in too. Anyone who can help you with your round, either do the blocking and tackling work of sending out pitch decks and stuff like that, or people who have a Rolodex of investors. And I'll give you an example of what I did. I had a column here called Steve B Leads. Steve Bennett is one of my advisors, one of my mentors. I created a column. I invited him into the account. I said, hey, Steve, I'm building out my investor pipeline. I've built a column for you in my CRM. Could you come in and add some names to your column? And he did that. And so that was a really useful way of generating some good solid leads. So that's getting your team setup. The other bit of administration, again, under settings, is connecting your email. My email is already connected or integrated, but if it wasn't, I would see a prompt here to connect it. And there are a couple of reasons to connect your email. One is it will let you send out email sequences, pitch decks, investor updates from the system. So you can start sending stuff out. Number two, I'll show you this in a second, but it will also pull in email conversations that you're having with investors and display them on the investor cards. And we have one kind of neat feature here. I'll zoom in a little bit. Share emails across the team. So let's say it's you and your co-founder and maybe an advisor working on the fundraise together. If you click that little tick box, let me open up a card here. It will pull in the email conversations that all three of you are having. So you can see everyone's conversations back and forth. A lot of people really like that. We call that high visibility fundraising. You can see all the conversations going back between you, your team, your co-founder, your advisor with the target investor. So that's kind of a nice feature. As you just saw there, if I open up a card, if I click on that card, it will show the expanded view of that investor. Here's where we have a little bit of data about that investor. Here's where you can see or add contacts, right? Who are the people that work at Draper Nexus Ventures? I can add notes. I can add activities. What does that mean? So if I have some task, right, got to do something, send due diligence materials, I can create a deadline for that, and then I can export this out to a calendar of my choice. So this will populate that task or activity on the calendar of your choice. Kind of a nice little feature to stay on top of the myriad of tasks that happen when you're fundraising. Email, this will pull that in. I showed you that. You can also attach files and see the whole history with that investor. So, basically this is sort of your single source of truth, your single record for data about the investor, contacts, notes, activities, email files, and all that. Okay, back to the CRM here. When you first come in here, other than the 20 or so we give you when you first sign up, your CRM will be basically empty. There are a couple different ways to add investors. You can click the button. Let's say you met someone at a conference and you want to add them to your pipeline. You can either see if they're in our investor database and pull in the data, or you can add them by manually typing in. That's number one. Number two is you can import a list of investors. Many people already have a spreadsheet of investors. That's great. Click this, browse your files. So yeah, let's say I have an investor list already. I click that, click upload, and basically the next step is to match the columns in your spreadsheet, your Excel or CSV, with the fields in our CRM. You can kind of see the fields there. And this should be pretty straightforward, but it sometimes makes sense to go in and look at the fields that we have and then clean up your spreadsheet. A lot of times I tell founders, clean up your spreadsheet to ideally match the fields we have. For example, if you have a column for first name, a column for last name, we just have a single column for contact person name. So you might want to merge those columns into one so it imports better. We can send you a import template spreadsheet. Very simple spreadsheet that you can copy your data into. Just reach out to us either in the intercom in the lower right-hand corner or email us at info@foundersuite.com. We can send you that template. But basically just match up your fields with our fields and then import, and those will bring it in. Okay, so the, I guess, third or fourth way of adding investors to your CRM is in our investor database. We have, this number changes quite a bit, but we have roughly 144,000 investors in here, and we have them tagged by type of investor, about 100,000 angels, high net worth, about, I want to say 17,000 or so VCs, and then a smattering of other types of investors, family offices and others. So we have them tagged by type of investor, industry, I think about 700 or 800 industry tags, location, and stage. I usually tell folks to start with industry. If I add health tech and, for example, medical devices, this is going to expand the results. So this is an and function, health tech and medical devices. If I add a type filter, this will narrow down the results. So this is basically showing me health tech plus medical devices filtered down to venture capital. All right, so far so good. kind of go through here and if someone catches my eye, let's say Orbimed looks interesting. I recommend doing a couple different things. First of all, read the description, maybe look at the types of deals they're doing. Clearly, these guys are doing fairly larger deals, probably later stage investors and indeed private equity and hedge funds. So these guys are kind of a later stage type of investor. But, look at the data we have here, sweet spot, fund size, things like that. Look at the deals they've done. Um, you can see the people that work there that we have and their contact information. If you want to click through a bit, you can open that up. Other things to do as you're deciding whether Orbimed is a good fit for you or a good target, this is new and this is kind of one of my favorite things. This will open up a GPT prompt. Go ahead and click that. This is going to, this is going to, I guess, they're giving me two different things because they're trying to guess what I like best. In general, though, this is going to open up some details about Orbimed investors, right? Orbimed Ventures, and kind of help me make a decision, right? What stage are they at? What are their turn-ons, turn-offs, so on and so forth. So that's our little GPT wizard there. This will open up a Google search. This will open up their website. That's another good place to start, right? Go to their website, look at their portfolio, make sure they don't have a competitor, look at their leadership or their team. Ideally, find the best partner that, does your type of deal. And then you can do one of two things. You can add this to the pipeline, and you would ideally in the previous step have figured out who the best partner is. I would not suggest adding everyone. You don't want to spam an entire firm. Narrow it down to the best one or two or maybe three max people that are doing your type of deal. And you can add them to the CRM that will drop them onto the CRM or use this get intro tool. And this is really quite powerful. So this is going to show me people at Orbimed. Click through, find the right person again, and then ideally find someone where you have a couple different connection paths. So Ran, I have a few paths to. Let's take a look at that. Okay, I have three paths to Ran. These are my mutual connections. So to be clear, I'm trying to get in touch with Orbimed. I've identified Ran Gang as a good person at Orbimed, and then these are my mutual connections to get to Ran. We don't have, these are not strong signals. In many cases, this will tell how the connector knows the investor. Let me go back and see if I can find a better one real quick. Let's go to Craft Ventures because I want to show you this signal piece. All right, this looks a little bit better. All right, here's a good example. Brian Rosenblatt at Craft Ventures. I've got a bunch of connection paths there. Let's see if I have any good signals to it. Okay, this is really good. So again, Brian's the one at Craft Ventures. Morgan's my connector. Let's go in and see. A lot of times it will tell me that they either worked together in the past or they did a deal together in the past, or Brian funded, Morgan. Doesn't have it in this case, but if you can find that path, right, a mutual connection that has been funded by that investor, that is a tremendous intro path. So let's pretend that was Morgan. My next step is simply, hey, Morgan, I see that you know Brian pretty well. Congrats on closing around with them. Here's what I'm doing. Could you introduce us? You can customize this, maybe include a link to your deck, whatever it is, and then send. So that's asking Morgan for the introduction to Brian. If you do this process right, your hit rate in terms of getting intros and getting meetings is going to be dramatically higher than any other path, any other method you can do. Warm intros are 30 times more effective than cold outbound. Not 30%, 30 times more effective. And if you can map a good connection path with a strong signal, that's how you get funded fast. I've seen this work really, really well for lots of people. Okay, so that's how to search the database, how to do a little research on the investors, before either adding them to your CRM or getting that intro. And I recommend doing both, right? Both looking at the intro path, but also adding them to CRM. You can, let me just add first round capital to my CRM. And let's say it's Finn. I actually kind of know that guy, and Rob. So, if I don't want to do the intro right now, I can add first round to my CRM. That's going to put them at the top of my research column. There they are. And then when the time's right, I can do the get intro feature right here, right? So that's how that all works. And I think you'll get some good results from this. I want to find a good signal just to show you what that looks like. Okay, yeah, here's an example, right? So this is context. So Jeanette's the target investor, Alexis is a mutual connection, and it's showing they both worked together for a couple years. So that's something you could even reference in your intro email or intro request email. All right, so that's the CRM, that's the database. We're adding, I'll just tease you with this. We are in the process right now of mapping essentially every startup investment over the past 8 to 10 years, and we're adding it into our database. We've got almost 80,000 startup investments that we're digesting, massaging, standardizing, and we should be adding 15 to 20,000 new investors to the database in a matter of weeks. I can't give you an exact timeline because there's always stuff that comes up. But that will let you do two things. One, it'll let you look up a startup. If there's a startup in your space, hopefully not a direct competitor, you'll be able to put that startup in here and see who funded them. We're going to be adding a co-investor matrix. So, if Accru is good, it will show you who they commonly co-invest with, right? So if you do land Accru as a lead investor, we can help you figure out who good co-investors are. And and then we'll be adding these 15,000 or so long tail investors. These are investors that you're not going to find too many other places. We're really leaning into our database as a moat in this crazy world of AI. We're also going to be adding user generated data. So, for example, we have a couple thousand startups using Foundersuite. If some of our users are moving Accru capital into their committed, and the average check size is $4 million, we're going to be adding that, right? Very anonymous, confidential stuff, where no one's personal information, but we're going to be gathering signals from the user activity. Did Accru lead most of the rounds happening from our users? Were they mostly co-investors? We're going to be adding tags. So lots of cool stuff coming. Okay, so that's the CRM, that's the database. Just a few other things, and then I'll do a Q&A. Our pitch deck hosting. So maybe you've got the introduction to an investor, or even prior to that, upload your deck, and upload a deck, and it'll create an online version of the deck. So this is just our sales deck, but this is creating an online version of it. You can copy this URL, send it via text, via LinkedIn, whatever you want. You can also send it through the system. So let's see, I did this one not too long ago. I can click this. Now I have to have connected my email. I showed you that a few steps ago, but I can send this email out with the deck included. And once I send it, it will give me some information about who I sent it to, who opened the email, who opened the deck, how many times they visited, how much time they spent. And if I click this, it'll take me through that. But some analytics around email opens, deck viewing time if you send the pitch deck out through our system. So use this to, send your deck, track who's following along. Also, this is one of my favorite funding hacks is sending out a monthly, ideally monthly or quarterly if you don't quite have that cadence, sending out a monthly investor update to everyone in your CRM, everyone in your pipeline. Even go a little bit beyond that, maybe any advisors, mentors, fellow founders, anyone who might help you, keep them updated with your progress. This should only take you 15 to 20 minutes to create a nice little investor update template. So this is very WYSIWYG. To create a template, you click on this little thing. It'll give you, do I want a paragraph? Do I want a bullet list? Right? It'll give you all the options. Do I want to put in an image here? Very WYSIWYG, easy to create a template. Once you've created a template, you can reuse that template. We have some sample templates that can get you started, but this is an example of a really simple, really good investor update for prospective investors, meaning folks who have not yet written you a check. A little bit about what you do, right? This is going to be pretty static. Maybe you'll update this a little bit, but pretty much this is going to stay the same. Actually, I can update this right now because we are over 100,000 startups. And then key wins. What happened last month that's exciting, new? It could be revenue growth, user growth, partnership deals, new product releases, any press you received, right? What good stuff happened in your business last month? Put it in here. Put in an image of your product, even if you're in the lab, finding a cure for cancer, put a picture of something in here. Humans are visual creatures. I really recommend that. Your metrics, your KPIs, You just click this to add those, whatever those may be. What's happening next? What's coming up in the business next month? New partnership deals, new product releases, whatever. And then conclude with an image of your team. You and your co-founders in the lab, in your white coats, standing over some beakers, whatever it is. Again, investors are humans. You want to humanize your startup. A lot of founders say, send me their update. And it's just a bunch of text. I'm like, I don't get any feel for who you are as a startup or a company, right? So this is all you really have to do for your investor update. Short and sweet, block it off on your calendar, third Friday of every month, block off an hour or two to write this and send it out. And when I do send this out, just like with the pitch deck, I can track and see, who opened it, who read it, how much time they spent on it, all that good stuff. That's the investor updates. Two more things to show you really quick. The send email tool. So we've got two options here. If I want to send a single email to multiple people, I would call it a batch email. I can do that right here. Or if I want to send multiple emails or a series of emails to multiple people, we call that a drip or a sequence. I can do that right here. I come in here, give it a name. We call it a campaign or sequence. Give it a name, write your subject title, write your email. There we have a couple features here. There's personalization tokens. So if I'm sending this to 50 people and I want to personalize the emails, which you should do, it's a good thing to do. We have several tokens you can use to personalize that. Hi, name. My name is John. I'm CEO. I noticed that your fund name invested in a certain industry, a portfolio company, whatever it is. Personalize this a little bit. And then, what do you do? Here's a calendar link, or maybe I include a link to the deck that I just uploaded, right? You can copy the URL from the pitch deck hosting and put that in here. If you're looking to do that, here's how to include that link right here. And that's pretty much it. So I write my first email, and then I have some options here. I'm going to move this to next week so it doesn't look red. So I can create simple little rules. We call this step timing. If the email is not opened by the recipient, then I send the next email. If the email is replied to, then I move that card into a certain column on my pipeline. Responded column would be a logical one, but you can do this any way you want. So basically, those are very simple rules, right? So if they don't open my email, or if they open it, I think another option is opened but did not reply, keep sending them emails. If they do reply, move them in and stop sending them emails. So obviously, if we're going to be sending them another drip, if they don't open or don't reply, that's drip number 2. And I don't think we limit how many emails you can tee up in this sequence, but I wouldn't do more than 4 or 5. That's getting kind of pushy after that. Then once you've written your sequence, set up your rules, you pick who you want to send it to. You can, choose your pipeline. If you want to send it just to specific people, like if I just want to send it to people in a certain pipeline and they're in my qualified and mapped. Sometimes I'll drop people into research that look interesting, then I'll spend a little more time kind of qualifying them. So maybe I want to reach out to people in my qualified and mapped. You can do that or both, right? So you would pick who you want to send it to, and you have to make sure if you're using personalization tokens like name, firm name, industry, that you have data in all these. So if I selected Ethan, it's not going to let me send it to him because I'm missing his greeting and first name. Obviously, I could just type that in right here. This is helping prevent any of that hi first name thing showing up in the email. Obviously, you don't want that. So I select my recipients, kind of double check that, and then schedule send. Boom, that will start that sequence. Last but not least, we have a data room. This is an add-on, or it's included in the platinum plan, but it's an add-on, $20 a month for everyone else. This is a sample data room. If you sign up, I'll send you a list of sample folders. But basically, what is a data room, right? It's a series of folders, a collection of folders. You populate these folders with your files, your corporate docs, your articles of incorporation, your pitch deck, other materials, financials. This is where you can upload and share your confidential stuff. A lot of times I tell founders in the pitch deck section I just showed you, maybe you upload a teaser deck and send that out. But in the data room, you can really share your confidential stuff because I can share this data room with investors. I can give them access to the entire data room if I want to do that here, or I can just give them access to my pitch materials folder, or I can even drill down into pitch materials and I can invite the investor just to this specific file. So to summarize, you can invite investors to the entire data room or just specific folders or just specific files. And let me go back a sec. And when I do that, I can control what the investors can do. You enter their email, and then I can control what they can do. I want Bill to only be a viewer. That's only going to let him view my stuff, not do anything else. Or I want him to view and print stuff. Maybe he's old school, likes to print stuff out, or view plus print plus download. You would typically not invite them to these other categories here. You might invite your co-founder to be an admin, but investors would typically be view, print, or download. And I invite them in. That's all for the security. You can also watermark documents. So it'll say across the front of the PDF, it'll say Bill at benchmark. So it's, helps reduce or prevent them from sharing your confidential stuff. Two quick notes on a data room. Two reasons I love the data room so much. Number one is it's going to make you look really professional to have a data room. I'd say 3% of startups set up a data room in advance of fundraising. So having one pre-populated with all your materials is going to make you look really good. And it's going to make due diligence process go much faster and easier if you have a data room already set up. I tell this story sometimes when I raised our seed round. I got a term sheet on a Friday. And on Monday, the venture firm sent me their due diligence list, and it was like 200 items they needed: references, financials, articles of incorporation, everything, right? I was not prepared for due diligence. I had stuff scattered all over. I hadn't even built some of the stuff. And it took me like 2 months to get all my due diligence materials together and prepared. And it slowed down the fundraising because I wasn't prepared. If I had built a data room in advance, when they send me that list of due diligence requests on Monday, I just say, hey guys, I got it all in my data room. I'm going to invite you, give you access. Boom. I'm a rock star. I look professional, I look prepared, and due diligence goes fast, right? The second reason I love a data room so much is you can use it to kind of get investors to show their hands of whether they're really interested. It's hard to tell many times if an investor is truly interested in not or not. So one little funding hack you can do is send an email to everyone kind of in these columns: sent intro, sent pitch deck, viewed deck, responded, set up pitch meeting. Send an email to everyone in here up to about this point saying, hey, we're going to be opening up our data room June 15th through July 21st. If you're interested in potentially putting down a term sheet, let me know and I will invite you into our data room. And then hit send, right? And you're going to get people ignore you. That's kind of a no. You're going to get people say, not so, no thanks. Thanks, nice to meet you, but no thanks. But the people who raise their hand say, yes, I would like access to your data room. They're interested buyers, interested potential investors. So anyway, to summarize that, I love using the data room as a catalyst to get investors to kind of signal their intent, right? You'll invite them to the data room if they're seriously interested. There's a lot of other bells and whistles, which I won't go into, ways to filter your pipeline. So you can do that. You can add tags. If I want to add tags about this investor, you can create your own set of tags for these investors and then sort and filter by those tags. There's a lot of stuff to do under the bulk actions if you want to delete a bunch of investors in mass or in bulk. If you want to copy or move investors between one pipeline and another, you can do that here. On the gold and above plans, you can export your investors, and that's probably all that needs to be said there. Two last things, and I'll do Q&A. You can set up multiple pipelines. So why would you set up multiple pipelines? Because you might want to organize investors either by type of investor. So maybe you're raising from both angels and VCs. You could create one pipeline for all the VCs, another pipeline for all the angels. Sometimes I see people segment by geography, right? So they have East Coast investors in one pipeline, West Coast in another, or even just by stage. If you're raising a seed round right now, but you're going to be doing a Series A, 6 to 9 months from now, create two pipelines, one for seed, one for Series A, because you might find in our database some really good fit investors for you, but maybe they're more later stage investors. Add them to the Series A pipeline now, so that when it's time to come back to the Series A, you have a pipeline already built. Last thing I think, and then let's do Q&A, is we have this dashboard. This is a demo account, so it looks a little funky because I haven't really actually sent out emails and stuff. But this is where you can kind of see all the activity of your emails, your investor updates, stuff like that. And then if you want to just see a master log of all the activities in the account, you can do that here. This is useful, especially if you're working with a co-founder or maybe someone's helping you, maybe you have an intern or someone, you can see all the activity going on. All right, let me stop sharing for a minute. I think we had a few chats. Stuart asked, can you let them forward the link? I'm assuming that's with the pitch deck hosting. So when you send out your pitch deck through the system, that has a link to the deck, and yes, that can be forwarded, which is why sometimes I say use the pitch deck for your sort of non-confidential teaser deck. Something I'll show you that's kind of neat if you're going to be using the pitch deck is we have this little verify email toggle. So if I send out this and I turn this on, then any recipient of the deck will have to enter their email to be able to see the deck. Now, to be totally fair, people can spoof that and enter a dummy email and stuff like that, as you can do on DocSend and other sites. But that will at least encourage them to enter their email. So sometimes you'll see, and this is actually kind of a perk or a feature in many cases, you might send your deck to 5 investors, and then you start to see some other names populate on here. And you're like, they must be sharing it with other co-investors. That's actually a good thing. You want investors to be kind of circulating a potential deal with others. So yes, they can forward the link. If you don't want them to do that, or then use the data room. James asks, is there a way to move a column of investors within the Kanban board? Yeah, sure. So let me show you that. You can just drag and drop these columns actually. So if I want to drag and drop, move and qualify, I can just do that, right? So I can move that around. Or if you want to just move the investors from one column to another, you can do move investors. So 2 ways to do, I believe, what you just asked there. Okay, Lars says he's used the investor update feature, uploading images. Images, oh, here, actually, I just had a support ticket earlier this morning about importing or adding images to the investor update, so I'll comment on that. You might have to edit your image size offline. So if you're using like preview on a Mac, if you click tools, there's an option to adjust size. So sometimes you have to play around with the sizing of your image to make sure it fits nicely into the investor update. Stuart says we have a long cap table with many angels that won't show up in investor soon. So yes, okay. So I think you have a long cap table with many angels. You want to add them to Foundersuite in your current shareholders pipeline. You absolutely can, and that's actually something I've seen people do, which I didn't mention, but I really like this idea. Let me share screen again. So yeah, go ahead and make a pipeline and call it something like current investors or previous investors, whatever it is. Add all those people in there. And then when you're sending an investor update, you would simply pick that pipeline, select all, and you'll send it to your previous investors. That's what I do. I have investors, I send my investor update to them. So absolutely. If you have questions about how to do stuff I just mentioned, if you have feedback for us, something's fuzzy or unclear, if you have product suggestions and ideas, we'd love to hear from you. info@foundersuite.com, or in the intercom chat in the lower right-hand corner, we'll get you a fairly fast response. I mentioned the 80,000 deals and 20,000 investors coming in a few weeks. We're also revising like the search functionality of the investor database to make it more useful. We're going to get to probably 200,000 investors before the year end, so we got to make this more and more useful. We're working on an AI agent to do some of the work for you. Fundraising still is kind of a manual, tedious process, so we're working on things to help you out. If you have ideas, feedback, let me know. Stuart, this is a good question. Stuart asks, if I enter those angel investors into the pipeline, does that expose their contact details to the world? Some are very private. Great question. No, it does not. So any investors you add to your CRM stay private to your CRM. They don't get into our database. Those are like a Chinese wall between those two. So no, they're completely private to you and you alone. I'm going to lose my voice, so I'm going to cut it off here. You can always email us info@foundersuite.com. Oh, Lars, thank you very much for the nice feedback and Joy too. Also, have a great weekend, everyone, and hope to see you again soon. Over and out. Bye.